So this is Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra, chapter titled The Fourth Vajra Point, the Element. The element means dhatu. Dhatu means element. So if you hear them talk about Dharma dhatu, the Dharma element, or the Buddha dhatu, Buddha element, that's what we're talking about here, the element. These chapters, they talk about 7 Vajra points, and this is the 4th Vajra point, the one in the middle, called the Buddha element, or the Dharma element, the reality element. The perfect Buddha Kaya means Buddha body. The perfect Buddha Kaya is all-embracing. Suchness cannot be differentiated, and all beings have the disposition. Thus, they always have Buddha nature. The Buddha has said that all beings have Buddha nature, since Buddha wisdom is always present within the assembly of beings, since this undefiled nature is free from duality, and since the disposition towards Buddhahood has been named after its fruit. The Dharmakaya is the 3rd level of the Trikaya. There's the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya. Nirmanakaya and Shambhogakaya form the Rupakaya, the form body, and beyond this is the absolute body, the Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya of a perfect Buddha embraces and pervades all phenomena. With regard to suchness, or the true state of the entirety of samsara and nirvana, there is not the slightest differentiation. The disposition of the Tathagata is present within all sentient beings. In terms of the Dharma Dhatu, the Dharma element, being by nature pure and its veils being able to be purified. For these reasons, all sentient beings have had the nature of the absolute Buddha always and uninterruptedly since beginningless time. So here we're talking about the Buddha as not just a physical body. The physical body which you see is just the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body. But a Buddha's emanation body is just the visible form of the Dharmakaya, which is like space, embracing everything, embracing all Buddha qualities, like a space-like mind, which is pure, free. As it is said in the sutras, the Buddha Bhagavat has said all sentient beings always have the Tathagata Garbha. All sentient beings always have the Tathagata Garbha. With regard to the 3 reasons given above, the great translator from Ngok has said the following. In the given sequence, they represent the Shugata Garbha in terms of the fruit, the Shugata Garbha in terms of the nature, and the Shugata Garbha in terms of the cause. The first is the Dharmakaya. This is the real Tathagata, whereas the nature of beings is only named after it. Since it is able to be attained by beings, it is explained as being all-pervasive. The second is the real nature of both the Tathagata and beings. When merely considered from the aspect of suchness being by nature completely pure, the Shugata Garbha, or Tathagata Garbha, is really present within a Tathagata and beings alike. The third is the real nature of beings. Since it is the cause of the Tathagata, it has been named after it. So Tathagata Garbha or Shugata Garbha. Garbha means either womb or matrix. So it can mean either womb or matrix. So it's talking about a matrix of the Tathagata a matrix which is like space, which contains like a spirit almost, a spirit of awakening, a spirit of Bodhi, spirit of enlightenment, which is full of permanent Buddha qualities. At this point, Noble Asanga states in his commentary, in brief, there are 3 reasons for which all beings have the nature of the Tathagata. The Bhagavan has said, all beings have Buddha nature, since Buddha wisdom is always present within Buddha nature, since Buddha wisdom is always present within the assembly of beings, since this undefiled nature is free from duality, and since the disposition to Buddhahood has been named after its fruit. So this kind of line of thinking is what produced the great bhakti movements within Buddhism, is what produced the spirit of bhakti within Buddhism. The only difference is that they actually see it as non-dual, whereas Vaishnavism, although they claim that God is non-dual, they're really dualists. I've never met a Gaudiya Vaishnav who I consider as someone who had a single taste of non-dualism. They might have a taste of it, but they are afraid, it seems, to actually realize God is non-dual. It's very scary. It forces you to confront all of those comfortable illusions which keep us veiled from the truth. Non-dualism does force us to confront these illusions. So it's easier just to worship God as something external to yourself. But here, Buddha has said that Buddha wisdom, Buddha nature is always present in beings. And so the idea is that even here and now, your nature is not separate from Amitabha, the Buddha of limitless qualities, endless light. So even here and now, that nature which you have within you is Amitabha. And so, from this perspective, from our angle, until we merge completely into Amitabha, which of course you're never going to do because you're a Bodhisattva who works for the betterment of beings. You pay homage to Amitabha as a liberating, endless light who liberates all sentient beings. And you kind of meditate on it in that way. And as such, we come to realize our own shortcomings, and Amitabha emerges from within the depths of our mind as our own essential nature. And we are absorbed into it. And somehow you still can have that faith and devotion, almost in a dualistic sense, but it's not dualistic. It's faith and devotion to the non-dual. It doesn't mean devotion to yourself. It means devotion to what is. That's where the Vaishnavas get slipped up, because they think in extremes. It either has to be a self or it's a not self. Is God yourself or it's not yourself? One or the other. That's how they think, extremes. And that's how they trick simple-minded people. God is neither yourself nor not yourself. Amitabha is not yourself nor not yourself. Amitabha is the Buddha nature. It's something of impersonal and personal at the same time. You can't say it's self, you can't say it's not self, because conceptual elaboration is completely worthless. You can pay homage to it as the supreme nature of all things. And that doesn't have to mean that you're forming a dichotomy of self versus other. So it's kind of tricky in that sense. But anyway, let me continue. These three reasons have been taught extensively in all the words of the Buddha. With respect to this, they are explained as follows. Due to the fact that the Dharmakaya of the Tathagata embraces all beings. So here, Asanga kind of hints towards bhakti. Due to the fact that the Dharmakaya of the Tathagata embraces all beings, the suchness of the Tathagata is completely indivisible, and they all have the disposition of the Tathagata. So because Amida's light is all penetrating, the suchness of Amida is indivisible. That means real non-duality. The suchness of Amida is indivisible. So when you and I appear here to be you and I here separately, it's only a conceptual designation that makes us come off as being separate. But if you look inwardly, there's only one heart space, which is all-pervading. Devotion to that is the only bhakti that means anything. If there is bhakti to a dualistic God, you're a fool, caught in the mire of illusion, in samsara. Continuing. In some commenting scriptures, these lines do not appear, yet they have been quoted and explained extensively by Golo, Konchon, Rongton, and others. And they have explained in detail by Taranatha, etc. Nevertheless, they seem to have been omitted in present-day scriptures. Continuing. Essence, cause, fruit, function, endowment, manifestation, phases, all-pervasiveness of suchness, unchangingness, and inseparability of the qualities should be understood as intended to describe the meaning of the absolute expanse. Can I read that again? Essence, cause, fruit, function, endowment, manifestation, phases, all-pervasiveness of suchness, unchangingness, and inseparability of qualities should be understood as intending to describe the meaning of the absolute expanse. It should be understood that the intention behind the following 10 points is to determine the meaning of the Dharma Dhatu, which is by nature utterly pure, being equivalent to the true state of everything or the absolute truth. They represent a systematic order that classifies this meaning fully and properly. The points, essence, and cause describe the features of purity and purification. The points, fruit, and function describes the feature of accomplishment. The topic endowment describes the multitude of qualities. The topic manifestation describes the fact that there is a difference in manifestation due to different kinds of individuals. And of course, I would add that this doesn't at all interfere with non-duality. The topic phases describes the fact that there is only a classification in terms of names. The topic all-pervasiveness describes the fact that suchness is all-pervasive like space. The topic unchangingness describes the fact that the Dharma dhatu is at all times free from change. And the topic inseparability of the qualities describes the fact that the qualities are completely inseparable from it. Just as a jewel, the sky and water are pure, it is by nature always free from poisons. From devotion to the Dharma, from highest wisdom, from samadhi and compassion, its realization arises. Just as a precious jewel, the sky and water are by nature pure, likewise the Tathagata Garbha or Dharma dhatu is by nature always free from the defilement of the mental poisons and thus utterly pure. Whereas this is the meaning of the essence, the cause that completely purifies the adventitious defilements consists of devotion towards the Mahayana Dharma, of highest discriminative or analytic wisdom, realizing the non-existence of a self. Non-existence of a self. So here they talk about the different kinds of individuals and also side by side the non-existence of a self. This means that there's no limit to an individual. An individual is a process and not a self. An individual is a motion, a movement, a series of ratios, geometric patterns, but not a blocky self. Of limitless samadhi endowed with bliss, and a great compassion focusing on sentient beings as its point of reference. The realization arising from these purifying causes is to be known as enlightenment. Wielding power, not changing into something else, and being a nature that has a moistening quality. These three have properties corresponding to those of a precious gem, the sky and water. When considered from the viewpoint of the specific characteristic of each, the three aspects of nature explained above are to be known to have properties corresponding to the specific characteristics of a precious jewel, the sky and water, respectively. Since the Dharmakaya wields the power to accomplish all wishes and intentions just as they are, and so on, it has a property corresponding to that of a precious wish-fulfilling gem. Since throughout all phases suchness does not change into another nature, it has a property corresponding to that of the sky. Since the disposition is a nature having a moistening quality, as it is endowed with compassion that pervades all beings, It has a property corresponding to the quality of water. When considered from the viewpoint of the general characteristic native to all three, there is also a common property. Since they are permanently free from defilement and by nature utterly pure, they have a property corresponding to the quality of a wish-fulfilling gem, the sky, and water, which are also by nature pure. So the idea is that even while in this body, we have a pure nature within us, which is just like the sky. The sky, even though you might burn down a whole forest, you can't burn the sky. Even though you might want to cut down everything, all trees and a forest, you can't cut the sky. Even though you might want to pollute the air with carbon dioxide, you can't pollute the sky. You can pollute the air, but you can't pollute space. Space is different from air, although it's closely related with air. You can't pollute space. You can't cut space. And so in that way, space represents the mind, which can't be cut, can't be polluted, is intrinsically pure, intrinsically permanent. Even though there might be many defilements passing through the air, the space itself is never bothered. Likewise, though there might be many impurities which pass through your vital airs, your pranas in your body, your mind, the nature of your mind is never tainted. And just like water, the compassion of a enlightened being has a purifying effect. Those whose seed is devotion towards the Supreme Vehicle, whose mother is analytic wisdom generating the Buddha qualities, whose abode is the blissful womb of meditative stability, whose nurse is compassion, are heirs born to succeed the Muni. So someone whose seed of devotion is towards the Mahayana, whose mother is analytical wisdom generating the Buddha qualities, whose abode is the blissful womb of meditative stability, and whose nurse is compassion. Those ones are heirs born to succeed the Buddha. There are 4 reasons for which a Chakravartin king has the power to become legitimate successor to the king. Chakravartin has the power to become a legitimate successor to the king. These are the seed of the king, his pure queen, the unimpaired abode of her womb, and the exceptional nurse who nourishes the child as he grows. Using this example, it can be said that devotion towards the Supreme Vehicle is the seed of the Buddha. Discriminative wisdom that realizes the true nature of everything is like the mother generating all Buddha qualities. Since the happiness of meditative stability, such as the treasury of space and so on, augments these qualities, it is similar to the abode of the womb. Since great compassion nourishes whatever has been granted, it is like a nurse. Whoever arises from these four qualities, he is called a Bodhisattva, or an heir, or a child of the victorious one, since he is born to succeed the Muni and has the power to be his successor. The fruit is the perfection of the qualities of purity, self, happiness, and permanence, weariness of suffering, longing to attain peace, and devotion towards the same are the function. The absolute expanse has two particular features, which are its fruit and its function. The particularity of the fruit consists of the perfection of the four qualities, being true purity, true self, true happiness, and true permanence. Since it acts to induce weariness of the suffering of samsara, longing to attain the peace of nirvana, and devotion towards this aim, it has a particular function. In brief, the fruit of these purifying causes fully divides into the remedies for the antidotes, which in their turn counteract the four aspects of wrong beliefs. In regard to the Dharmakaya, the causes purifying the Dharma Dhatu are devotion, discriminative wisdom, meditative stability, and compassion. The causes purifying the Dharma Dhatu are devotion, discriminative wisdom, meditative stability, and compassion. Put briefly, the fruit of these four purifying causes consists of four aspects. With regard to the Dharmakaya, the children entertain a strong attachment in terms of the belief in purity, in the existence of a self, in happiness, and impermanence. Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhists reverse these four aspects of an exaggerated view of a view of wrongly asserted reality where it is not present. In doing so, they get attached to their vision of impurity, non-existence of a self, suffering, and impermanence. The four aspects of the true purity of Dharmakaya and so on act as the remedies for this attachment. The four purifying causes are the means to bring about their perfection. Thus, the full division of the fruit is achieved. The Dharmakaya is purity, since its nature is pure, and even the remaining imprints are fully removed. The Dharmakaya is purity, since its nature is pure, and even the remaining imprints are fully removed. It is true self, since all conceptual elaboration in terms of self and non-self is totally stilled. It is true happiness, since even the aggregates of mental nature and their causes are reversed. It is permanence, since the cycle of existence and the state beyond pain are realized as one. Buddha Dharmakaya, which is the fruit, has the general characteristic of having been by nature utterly pure since beginningless time, and it has the specific characteristic of the adventitious stains. Adventitious stains, meaning that the poisons or the afflictions, the negative qualities of our attachment and aversion contain within themselves the remedies for themselves. That's why they're called adventitious stains here in this text. It has a specific characteristic of the adventitious stains along with their remaining imprints being eliminated. Thus, it constitutes the perfection of purity. The conceptual elaboration consisting of the belief in the existence of a self as it is imputed by the Hindus and so on, and the conceptual elaboration consisting of the belief in the non-existence of a self as is imputed by the Theravadins and so on, has been totally stilled and pacified without any remainder. Thus, it is the perfection of true self. all suffering has been ceased, rather. All suffering has been ceased without any exception. This is because karma and the mental poisons have become totally eliminated, up to the point that even the skandhas, which are of a mental nature, and their causes have been exhausted. These causes are on the one hand the subtle mental poisons present on the level of the remaining imprints of ignorance, and on the other hand the undefiled karma. Since even these causes have been entirely reversed and exhausted, the Dharmakaya is the perfection of happiness. Samsara and nirvana, the cycle of existence in the state beyond torment and pain, have been realized as being equal. Samsara and nirvana, the cycle of existence and the state beyond torment and pain, have been realized as being equal in that they are not two different things that should be rejected and adopted respectively. Thus, the two benefits are uninterrupted, and the Dharmakaya constitutes the perfection of permanence. The Dharmakaya constitutes the perfection of permanence. Furthermore, since the absolute expanse is by nature completely pure, there is not even the slightest need to remove a fault in terms of the impermanence of samsara. Therefore, it does not fall into the extreme of nihilism. Since it has been spontaneously present since beginningless time, there is not even the slightest need to add a quality in terms of the permanence of nirvana. Therefore, it does not fall into the extreme of eternalism. Not falling into either of these, it is established as nirvana free from the two extremes. So that's the whole thing right here. Because the absolute expanse is by nature completely pure, there is not even the slightest need to remove a fault in terms of the impermanence of samsara. Therefore, it does not fall into the extreme of nihilism. Since it has been spontaneously present since beginningless time, there is not even the slightest need to add a quality in terms of the permanence of nirvana. Therefore, it does not fall into the extreme of eternalism. Not falling into either of these, it is established as nirvana free from the two extremes. Their analytical wisdom has cut off all self-cherishing without exception. Yet cherishing beings, those possessed of compassion, do not adhere to peace. Relying on understanding and compassionate love, the means to enlightenment, noble ones, will neither abide in samsara nor in a limited nirvana. By means of a discriminative wisdom, realizing the non-existence of a self, Bodhisattvas have cut without any exception all the cherishing and attachment of viewing the skandhas as a self, along with the dormant tendencies of this attachment. Since this craving is eliminated, they do not fall into the extreme of existence and those who are dominated by great desire. Yet due to their great compassion, they cherish all sentient beings. They feel linked and close to them all, and therefore bring about their benefit. For this reason, bodhisattvas possessing compassionate love do not fall into another extreme either. They do not attain the state of peace that merely consists of the pacification of suffering as the Shravakas and Prateka Buddhas. Thus, they rely on two particular means to attain unsurpassable enlightenment. These are the understanding or discriminative wisdom realized. These are the understanding or discriminative wisdom realizing the non-existence of a self, and the great love and compassion focused on sentient beings as their point of reference. So here we're talking about Hinayana is the path of the yin. Path of the yin is Hinayana. What do I mean by that? I mean it's the path by which discriminative wisdom is realized, showing the non-existence of a self within the skandhas or the perishable. And the Mahayana is a positive path which shows the compassion and the Buddha qualities within the imperishable. So you have these two great currents of Buddhism spread throughout Asia. The South Asia tends to be towards the Hinayana, the yin path, and North and Eastern Asia tends towards the Mahayana, the yang path, the yang path. It's positive. So, at the harmonization of yin and yang, there is Taiji. Taiji is also called Tao. It's an essence which is not two. It's not two. It's one nature. Yin, yang is one nature. So when wisdom of the Theravada is united with the compassion of the Mahayana, and both of them are seen to be neither inherently existing, then the true permanent nature of mind is seen. Relying on these particular means, the noble heirs of the victorious one, who cultivate their practice on this basis, will not dwell in any extreme. Will not dwell in any extreme. Neither abiding in the extreme of samsara in terms of existence, nor abiding in the extreme of nirvana in terms of mere peace, they have achieved the direct manifestation of non-abiding nirvana. If the Buddha element were not present, there would be no remorse over suffering. There would be no longing for nirvana, nor striving or devotion towards the same. That with regard to existence and nirvana, their respective fault and quality are seen. That suffering is seen as the fault of existence and happiness as the quality of nirvana, stems from the presence of the disposition to Buddhahood. Why so? In those who are devoid of disposition, such seeing does not occur. Like the great sea, it holds qualities, immeasurable, precious, and inexhaustible. Its essence holds indivisible properties, thus the element is similar to a lamp. Unifying the elements of Dharmakaya, of victor's wisdom and great compassion, it is shown as being similar to the sea, by the vessel, the gems, and water. Clairvoyance, primordial wisdom, and absence of pollution are totally indivisible and native to the unstained abode. Thus it has properties corresponding to the light, heat, and color of a lamp. Based upon the manifestation of suchness dividing into that of an ordinary being, that of a noble one, and that of a perfect Buddha, he who sees thatness has explained the nature of the victor to beings. It manifests as perverted views in ordinary beings, as the reversal of these in those who see the truth, and it manifests as it is in an unperverted way, and as freedom from elaboration in a Tathagata. The unpurified, the both unpurified and purified, and the utterly purified phases are expressed in their given order by the names being Bodhisattva and Tathagata. The element as contained in the 6 topics of essence and so on is explained in the light of 3 phases by means of 3 names. Just as space, which is by nature free from thought, pervades everything, the undefiled expanse, the nature of mind, is all-pervading. As the general feature of everything, it embraces those with faults, those with qualities, and those in whom the qualities are ultimate. Just as space pervades the visible, be it of inferior average or of supreme appearance, having faults that are adventitious and qualities that are its nature, It is afterwards the same as it was before. This is Dharmata, ever unchanging. Though space permeates everything, it is not polluted due to its subtlety. Likewise, the Dharma Dhatu in all beings does not suffer the slightest pollution. Just as at all times worlds arise and disintegrate into space, the senses arise and disintegrate in the uncreated expanse. Space is never burnt by fires. Likewise, this Dharma element is not burnt by the fires of death, sickness, and aging. Earth rests upon water, and water upon wind. Wind fully rests upon space. Space does not rest on any of the elements of wind, water, or earth. Likewise, skandhas, elements, and senses are based upon karma and mental poisons. Karma and poisons are always based upon improper conceptual activity. The improper conceptual activity fully abides on the purity of mind, yet the nature of mind itself has no basis in all these phenomena. The skandhas, entrances, and elements are known to be resembling the earth. Karma and the mental poisons of beings should be envisioned as the water element. Improper conceptual activity viewed as being similar to wind. Mind's nature as the element of space has no ground and no place of abiding. The improper conceptual activity rests upon the nature of mind. Improper conceptual activity brings about all the classes of karma and mental poisons. From the water of karma and mental poisons, the skandha, entrances, and elements arise. As this world arises and disintegrates, they will arise and disintegrate as well. The nature of mind as the element of space does not depend upon causes or conditions, nor does it depend on a gathering of these. It has neither arising, cessation, nor abiding. The clear and luminous nature of mind is as changeless as space. It is not afflicted by desire and so on, the adventitious stains which are sprung from incorrect thoughts. It is not brought into existence by the water of karma, the poisons, and so on. Hence it is also not consumed by the cruel fires of dying, falling sick, and aging. The three fires of death, sickness, and aging are to be understood in their given sequence as resembling the fire at the end of time, the fire of hell, and an ordinary fire. Having realized thatness, the nature of the Dharma Dhatu just as it is, those of understanding are released from birth, sickness, aging, and death. Though free from the destruction of birth and so on, they demonstrate these, since by their insight they have given rise to compassion for beings. The noble have eradicated the suffering of dying, falling in and aging at its root, which is being born due to karma and poisons. There being no such cause, there is no such fruit. Since they have seen reality as it is, they are beyond being born and so on. Yet as the embodiment of compassion itself, they display birth, illness, old age, and death. After the heirs of the victorious one have realized this changeless state, those who are blinded by ignorance see them as being born and so forth. That such seeing should occur is a truly wonderful and amazing thing. When they have attained the field of experience of the noble, they show themselves as the field of experience of the children. Hence means and compassion of the friends of beings are supreme. Though they are beyond all worldly matters, these bodhisattvas do not leave the world. They act for the sake of worldly beings within the world, unblemished by defects. As a lotus will grow in the midst of water, not being polluted by the water's faults, these noble ones are born in the world unpolluted by worldly phenomena. Viewing the accomplishment of their task, their understanding always blazes like fire, and they always rest evenly balanced in meditative stability, which is peace. By the power of their former prayers, and since they are free from all ideation, they do not exert any deliberate effort to lead sentient beings to maturation. These heirs of the victorious ones know precisely how and by what method each should be trained. Through whatever teachings form Kaya's conduct and ways of behaving are individually appropriate, always acting spontaneously and without hindrance. For sentient beings whose number is limitless as space, such bodhisattvas who possess understanding truly engage in the task of benefiting beings. The way of the bodhisattvas unfold activity in the post-meditative phase equals the Tathagata's action in the world for being's true liberation. Though this is true indeed, whatever difference lies between the earth and an atom, or else between the water in the sea and an ox's hoofprint, is the difference between a Buddha and a bodhisattva. The Dharmakaya does not change into something else, since it has inexhaustible properties. It is the refuge of beings, since it protects them without any limit of time until the final end. It is always free from duality, since it is foreign to all ideation. It is also in an indestructible state, since its nature is uncreated. It is not born, and it does not die. It suffers no harm and does not age, since it is permanent and steadfast, the state of peace and immutability. Since it is endowed with inexhaustible qualities, the Dharmakaya is unchangingness itself, and thus has the attribute of permanence. Equaling the uttermost end, it is refuge itself, and thus holds the attribute of steadfastness. Since absence of thought is its nature, it is dharmata, free from duality, and thus has the attribute of peace. Having uncreated qualities, hosting uncreated qualities, it is immutability itself, and thus possesses the attribute of indestructibility.